Hello and welcome to That British Homestead. My name's Nick and today we're going to be harvesting in blight season. That's right. So first off, what is blight? Blight or late blight is the single most damaging disease you can get on your tomatoes or your potato plants, and it typically happens when there is a very rainy period during the summer. Okay, just like we've had this year. So if it's cool and it's rainy, that is when you get blight. Now blight is like a patchy kind of gross rottingness on your plants, and basically it can make you lose your whole crop, which is really rubbish. How you can reduce blight is by getting disease resistant crops, and honestly I've got two parts of this allotment. Half of it is really affected with blight and the other half isn't so bad. Cherry tomatoes here, great, no problem at all. Pretty much all my cherries seem to be resistant to the blight, which is great, but my larger tomatoes are not even a little bit remotely resistant to the blight and have really struggled. So it's about getting that disease resistant crop and monitoring for the black or brown patches. You can see here there are some brown patches that are starting on some of these plants, and what I'm going to do is as soon as I see that the plant is lost, I cut it down to the ground and I go ahead and throw it onto the bonfire and burn it. Burn them all! Now, typically late blight, which this is, will affect potatoes and tomatoes. However, sometimes it can affect peppers and eggplants, which is rubbish. My eggplants are actually quite affected by the blight this year, which has really stunted their growth. So when it comes to blight, prevention is key. I did last year spray all of my crops with aspirin. I really should have done that this year. Apparently it really helps to prevent the fungal infection kind of getting a hold on your plants. So perhaps next year I'll make that a priority. I just thought, last year we didn't have any blight until the really last, but just before the frost. Was like, I don't have to worry about that. But it is much easier to stop your plants getting it than if they do have it. Once they have it on the allotment, it spreads all the way through. Everyone grows tomatoes. You can imagine how, of a big an issue it is. With potatoes, it's the same thing. Try not to get potato seeds that don't have blight or a blight resistant, and not saving seeds from potatoes that do have blight as well is a massive advantage. You can't really cure potatoes that have got blight because obviously they're going to go bad really quick, so it's kind of just trying to use what you've got as you get it, if that makes sense. Blight doesn't actually overwinter in the soil. I've read lots of things saying that it does, but late blight just doesn't. So if you do get blight, don't worry about having to remove your soil or anything like that. It doesn't stay in the soil because it's a fungal disease. It actually needs to be in contact with living foliage to stay alive. So as soon as it kills all the plant, you've removed the plant, then it can actually not live anymore. But you will find that the blight spores, which will be spreading when it's on your plant, can actually travel 30 miles on the wind. So it does spread around the area super quickly. So you do get things like Blight Watch, which is an app that you can actually download on your phone, and it tells you whether or not you have blight in your area. Slowing down blight would obviously be in putting things in a polytunnel, or a greenhouse is another great option for it, but really there's not very much you can do. This year it was so bad that everybody who has theirs in their greenhouse also has got blight, because it's just absolutely perfect weather for blight at the moment. So if you have a load of blight spores, you can go ahead and compost them if you want, but I tend to just burn them because then they're out and away from anything else. I don't want them to spread. See, on this fruit it really damages them and it reduces your crop significantly. So what I'm doing is I'm picking any fruit that doesn't look like it has very much blight on it, and I'm keeping that, and you have to use that pretty much immediately. Anything that, as you can see, this large beef steak tomato has got significant blight on it, that is just gonna rot, so you don't want to keep that. So getting rid of any crops that have the blight on it will really help stop the spread throughout your tomato plants. Obviously they can go to the potatoes as well. It's just rubbish. Once the rain kind of comes in and it rains and 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 then rains some more, you know, you're not going to be able to stop the blight. And as you can see, like I said, the beef steaks have really struggled with it. I grow mostly heirloom varieties. As you can see, that beautiful basket then. And the heirloom varieties really struggle with blight because they just don't have any resistance. They're not crossbred to get resistance. They're kind of bred for flavour. And honestly, like for example, last year we had a shockingly good year last year for tomatoes. It was absolutely banging. But you can see even these plum tomatoes are affected. So it just depends. Every year you get bumper crops of some crops. Like this year, honestly, berries, it's been berry city. Whereas things like tomatoes, as you can see, they're not been fantastic. They're rotting on the plant and there's not very much you can do about it. But, I mean, look at those berries. I've got absolute tons of berries from here. It's been a very good fruit season in general. I've had lots of berries, lots of raspberries, tayberries, black currants, and of course rhubarb. Has been a really fantastic year. Been a decent year for beans as well. So I'm not going to have like a big negative like moan. Yes, the blight has been bad. Yes, I'm doing as much as I can to stop the blight. And yes, we are enjoying our berries. I'm actually at the moment just kind of like dumping these in the freezer. So I go ahead and pick them and I just dump them in the freezer until I have all of them, and then I get an incredibly massive bag pot out, and then I go ahead and make them into jam. We love jam in the winter. We kind of turn it into a jelly. So we take all the seeds out and have it as a smooth jelly. We call it jam though. And we make things like jam cake, which if you've never had it is amazing. You just make a normal cake and then you swirl jam through it before you bake it, which is great. We call it jam cake. Or jam tarts. We love a jam tart. And we really enjoy having things like that. They're comfort food for us in the winter, you know. And I am really glad that we've got a load of that, because last year we didn't do very much jam and we did actually run out, and that's very unlikely because we have so many berry bushes, etc. Like this whole area is just berries, so normally we are quite good at it. But last year was an absolute disaster when it came to raspberries because it was so hot and the raspberries don't really do very well in the heat. So by the time the heat kind of pitted off, it was like October, November time, and then the frost hit them, so they died off. So this year they are pumping out absolute tons of berries to make up from last year. So what I've decided, the more I garden, the more I decide this. So last year I was panicking about the tomatoes, like, oh my goodness, I've planted too many, why did I do that? And I was like really thinking of my life decisions. I was getting one tote of, you know, like when you go to do a Tesco's order and they bring you those like totes and you've got all your shopping in there. I used to get one of those every other day for my tomatoes, which was a ridiculous amount of tomatoes, and I was canning for hours every other day, which I'm just not doing this year. And you know, it's just one of those things that the planets sort of align and you get an absolute bumper crop. And that could be because of the temperature or the weather, or the fact that there wasn't very much rain or there was a lot of sunshine. And it depends on the crop, and one crop will just boom. Last year it definitely was our tomatoes, our eggplant, our peppers, everything did really amazingly. This year, complete opposite. Berries are doing so well, which is really exciting. but the tomatoes, the peppers and the eggplant are really, really struggling. But it just means that when you do have a bumper crop, it just means that you shouldn't complain about it, doesn't it? And I've learned that the hard way. So luckily I do have a few jars of tomato sauce left in my freezer, in my garage, which is just a blessing. And I did actually go ahead and do my first canning session today, and I did 8 cans of tomatoes, which are pint jars. So I'm really super excited about that. I have made fresh tomato sauce twice this year also, that we've enjoyed as, you know, just fresh tomato sauce, which is beautiful. We mix it with the wine that we've made, and that's absolutely lovely. And I'm so glad that we have that, and we have a few extra jars to put away for the winter time. Now, it's not the end of the world if I don't have as much, you know, pasta sauce as I do normally. To be honest, this year we absolutely smashed the tomato sauce on the basis that I was like, look, we've got so many, I don't want them all left, because we're going to have tons again next year. Next time I'm just not going to do that. It's okay to have them for a couple of years. Canned food, if it's done correctly, is absolutely fine for a good few years, so I'm not going to be worried about that at all. So I've kind of learnt something from this, and I'm super excited to be getting jam, but I won't be doing the jam until I've kind of collected all of the berries in. And then I love batch cooking. I absolutely love cooking massive portions. I don't know if I'm the only one, guys. Do you do this too? So what I do is I take all the berries in and I freeze them. And I've got a small fridge, you know, like a fridge freezer combo thing, and that is full of berries. That's all I have in there. My partner's like, we have no food in here but berries. So what I'll do is when berry season's over, I'll go ahead and make tons and tons of jam, and I'll spend the day making jam. I absolutely love cooking, so that's just like the best, honestly. And we also go blackberry picking. Me and my daughter absolutely love blackberry picking. We love a little bit of foraging, so we'll go out and do some blackberry picking near where we live. And we know, like, you know, when you've lived somewhere for a few years, you know all the best places to do blackberry picking. So we'll get loads of blackberries too, and we'll go ahead and have an absolute wonderful time getting all the blackberries, and we'll make apple and blackberry pie, and of course blackberry jam, which is just the best jam in my opinion. So it's going to be super exciting and super cool having all of those yummy alternatives. And I do think no matter how well or how good you are at growing any of your berries, etc., there's nothing beats wild blackberries. It's just, they are the nicest, aren't they? So we're going to go over and get some of those, and probably some plums, and make some plum jam as well. So we just try to get, we go round, we of course leave enough for the birds and the bees and the wasps and things like that, but we go and grab some to make like a couple of jars of jam, or just get like 3 or 4 to throw into a crumble, just kind of like as a day out, breaks up the summer holidays a little bit. So it should be a really exciting moment, and like I said, our family absolutely adores jam, so it is an exciting time for us. And I'm so glad that we've got, you know, it's so easy in gardening to be like, right, this has gone bad. And to be honest, tomatoes are my favourite harvest, and it's so easy to say to myself, like, oh, okay, this is destroyed now. This year's a write-off. I'm not going to go to the allotment. I'm just going to be, you know, upset and miserable and things like that. And it's so tempting. But I decided, look, every cloud has a silver lining. So why don't we just look at it like, okay, this is a great berry year. And we'll just remember that 2023 was a great berry year. We won't think, oh no, it was a rubbish tomato year, because that's not what we want to do. We want to be positive, don't we? So I'm going to put a positive spin on it. We're having absolutely loads of like raspberry yogurts and, you know, loads of things like that. We're making compotes and things like that, so that we are going through the berries, and we're being very grateful that we are blessed with such an abundance. Now, so far this year I am getting chilies. We're starting to get the chilies in, which is a blessing. I actually suck all of these chilies in the tomato sauce that I made because I quite like spicy food, but they weren't as many as last year. Like I said, we haven't actually been blessed with any bell peppers yet, but that's not a problem. At the end of the day, we still have I think it's a bag of frozen bell peppers from last year that are on the must use list, so we're using those, and we're really grateful that we had such abundance last year of them. Like I said, we got about a tote of bell peppers every few days as well, so it makes the best combination for tomato sauce, doesn't it? But it is what it is. If we don't have something like that, it doesn't matter. We eat seasonally most of the time, so we tend to eat what we have. The onions are doing well, they're coming in, we're going to be curing these bad boys. They're like the last of the drips and the drabs of the onions. I'm just picking them when they're starting to flop over, or when they've gone to seed. They don't really flop over, but they're still good. We're still eating them, we're still loving them, and we're replacing them. Look at that cauliflower. That cauliflower was huge, and we're looking forward to be eating that soon. In fact, the brassicas have done amazingly well this year, and we're absolutely adoring all the coleslaws and things like that we're having them, and also roasted cauliflower. I love roasted cauliflower so much, so we're really enjoying that and feeling quite blessed that we have such a abundance. Now cucumbers are starting to come in quick and fast. We eat a lot of cucumber. We do a lovely cucumber salad in the in the summer months, and we don't really have cucumbers until the next summer, so we kind of like eat them as fast as they come in. And you'll see in a little while Jasmine's walking around eating a cucumber, because these are some of the first cucumbers that we're getting, and we got about half dozen, which is pretty good. Not as obviously last year we got ridiculous amounts last year, which were just unsustainable. But we did eat them. We were eating so many cucumbers last year. Cucumber and tomatoes and fresh salsa and things like that. But this year we're still smashing through the cucumbers. We probably eat 3 or 4 a day. But it makes fantastic snacks and lunchbox treats and things like that. So we are feeling very blessed that we have them. And Jasmine's absolutely destroying the cucumbers as well, because she loves having something to snack on in the daytime, and I like to have her to eat something a little bit healthy, and cucumbers are one of your 5 a day, so I'm more than happy for her to munch on that. So it is nice that we're having that sort of fluctuation in our dinner, so that we can have something that we really enjoy. And it's like fresh tomatoes, it's something that we really crave throughout the year, but something we only tend to eat seasonally. So the more that we're growing, the more we eat seasonally, and I think it's really great to eat local, eat seasonally, and know where your food's coming from. But it does mean that like during like March, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm craving like some vegetable that you can only get once a year, like cucumbers or tomatoes, and I'm just like so desperate for it. Or if we run out of garlic, I'm like looking at my Sega garlic like, oh, you look so good. But we have to be quite disciplined, and I think it does mean that your vegetables mean more to you, and you start being like really super excited about them, which is nice. Here I decided to do a bit of weeding at the very end. This is the next day, you can't tell, change my top, and this bit of the garden has got a little bit out of control. The weeds kind of like get a little bit much. This is a no dig bed, as I keep telling you, no dig doesn't mean no weeds, does it? And we've got the perennial spinach at the back there. I've just harvested tons of that, and I'm about to put it all in the freezer. We make sag paneer out of it, so it's just fantastic to have like a grab and go sort of side dish to our curries. But there is so many weeds here on this no dig bed. I think it's getting to the point where I might have to put some more manure on it to kind of settle it down a little bit more. Now, as we're pulling them out, I did see something amazing. Now, I had sowed this with some carrot seeds ages ago, and they never came to pass, and I was a little bit depressed that the carrots that I went ahead and sowed, and I must have put about a packet and a half in there, nothing came. And guess what I was seeing? That's right, tiny little carrots. So it could possibly be that after about 4 months that we've got some carrots growing in here, which is super exciting and super fun. I'm hoping that we're going to have some carrots that we can go ahead and pull before the winter gets too bad, because I'm not going to overwinter them again on the basis that they all turned into jelly last year because we got down to -6, which never happens in the UK, just FYI. Right, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Please remember to subscribe. Bye bye.